We have already gained some track experience in our own country, but a few months ago we went abroad for the first time to ride our bikes on a track. We spent 5 days in April on the circuit of Almeria in southern Spain, and in this video we want to present you with 5 things we learned from that experience, 5 tips that are mainly intended for riders who already have some track experience in their own country and who are thinking about riding on a foreign track. Number 1. Logistics. Your motorcycle and other gear will probably be loaded onto a truck and sent ahead. This means that everything you think you're going to need at the track will need to be divided between the stillage that goes on the truck and that will already hold your motorcycle and your personal luggage on the plane. That is, of course, if you're flying to your destination like we did. So unless you're taking a car or a van and you're driving to your foreign track day event, there will always be a shortage of space to store all of your tools, your clothing, your riding gear and perhaps some spare parts. This is why we recommend making a list in advance of all the things you think you will need. An itemized list is useful for several reasons. First, a list makes it easier to make choices. Like I said, the amount of gear you will need is substantial and the stillage will always be too small, so you're going to have to make certain choices, and a list makes it easier to choose between essential things and things you might prefer to leave at home. Number 2, a list can be shared with others. If you're going to be riding with friends, you can make one shared list and split all the gear and tools over the different stillages and suitcases. I know a real man doesn't share his toolbox, but there's no point in 5 friends showing up in Spain with 5 identical socket sets. The third reason why a list comes in handy is the fact that you can save and amend the list from one track day event to another. So the next time you go abroad, you save yourself some time because you already have a list prepared. Number 2, insurance. If something goes wrong, not all costs may be covered by your health insurance. For example, costs associated with an expensive repatriation to your home country. You can take out additional travel insurance for this, but these often have clauses that exclude riding on track. Often the small print in the contract will say something about racing or time trial events or dangerous sports not being covered. Anyway, you don't want to pay for additional insurance only to find out that you're not covered if something happens. So if you do take out additional insurance, make sure that you get written confirmation from your insurance broker that your track riding activity is covered by the policy. We know that the UK has several brokers that offer comprehensive track day insurance, but in our own country we had a hard time finding suitable insurance. That's why we recommend checking with your local or national racing association. Even if you have no intention of participating in races, your motorsport association will often have insurance that covers recreational track riding as a form of training or preparation for race events. Number 3, level of experience. We found the level of the riders in Almeria slightly higher than on an average track day in our own country, which makes sense because most people will want to get their first track experience close to home where they feel comfortable. We would therefore advise against going abroad as an absolute beginner. Riding on track can be an overwhelming experience if you've never done it before, and so you may want to take your first steps in an environment that is familiar to you. For Almeria, we had registered in the novice group simply because we were strangers to this particular circuit. In the same group, however, there were also some riders who had never ridden on a track before, and they were, in our opinion, a danger to themselves as well as to others. We think it would have been better and safer for everyone if these absolute beginners had signed up for a track initiation in their own country, where they could gain their first track experience under the guidance of an instructor. Although some kind of instruction is also offered on foreign track days, this is often at a more advanced level, more like master classes. By the way, the gear and equipment we saw in Almeria were also of a higher level. We had expected to see quite a few ratty and patched up motorcycles that had passed through the gravel trap a few times, but instead we mostly saw fully prepped track bikes, shiny new leader bikes and even a few very exclusive bikes. However, that didn't stop the 3 of us from participating with a couple of street legal motorcycles still carrying their license plates and a 12-year-old Daytona. What we're trying to say is that there's no need to feel intimidated when they're unloading the bikes and yours is perhaps not the latest or the fastest. The main goal is to have fun, and you can have that with almost any bike. Number 4, the general atmosphere. Like I said, the level of riding seemed to us a bit higher than on an average track day in our own country. But at the same time, we found the general atmosphere to be more relaxed in Almeria. We didn't encounter any riders who took irresponsible risks. Everyone gave each other enough space, and there were no major incidents during the entire 5 days. Of course, this was our first and so far only experience with a foreign track day, so we shouldn't make generalizations on the basis of this single event. Nevertheless, it makes sense that people will take it a bit easier during foreign track days, because you will often have several consecutive track days booked, and that takes away some of the pressure to want to set a fast lap time quickly. Secondly, you're in a foreign country, and that naturally brings with it a pleasant holiday atmosphere with good food and a couple of beers in the evening. Thirdly, most people will ride with a certain degree of restraint, perhaps unconsciously, simply because they would rather avoid the extra hassle that comes with crashing your bike in a foreign country. Number 5. The weather. There are several reasons why you would want to book foreign track days, but most riders of course go to Spain, Portugal or Italy because the weather is nicer than in their own country, which means you can start riding earlier in the year. However, our last tip would be that you should not automatically assume that the weather will always be perfect in southern Europe. We thought we would be pretty safe in the south of Spain in April, but our first 2 days were rainy, with short but consecutive showers that left the track wet during the entire day. It was also relatively chilly, with a strong wind. Towards the end of the week everything cleared up, but only on the last of our 5 days did we get the weather for which we had come to Spain in the first place. It could have been worse, by the way, because the group that had left 2 weeks before us had non-stop rain for 5 days straight. So just to recap, these are the 5 things we learned from our first and so far only track days abroad. 1. Think hard about what you want to take with you and draw up a list. 2. Make sure you have sufficient insurance coverage. Perhaps check with your local motorsport association. 3. Expect a slightly higher level of riding. We wouldn't recommend going abroad for your very first track day experience. 4. Expect the general atmosphere to be more relaxed. And number 5, don't assume the weather will be perfect. The rain in Spain stays mainly in the plane, but sometimes there's simply no escaping it. So these are the 5 things we learned from our first foreign track day event, but maybe your experience was different from ours. If so, let us know in the comment section below and don't forget to subscribe.